and Trailblazers Chief Marketing Officer, Dewayne Hankins. Dewayne, welcome onto the program. How you doing so far?
Doing well, thanks, gentlemen. It's my first time.
Well, we promise that we'll certainly have a lot of fun right now. And so let's get to the news today about the new logo. And I want to ask you, what really drove the timing of today's announcement with the new logo?
Yeah, the timing was driven by it leaking online. That was the timing. But we had plans to unveil it June 5th, which was going to be the 40th anniversary of the celebration, and that would have been great and all. But obviously, that was a dream, and we knew it could possibly leak before then, so we were ready to rock.
And so you mentioned having that sort of contingency plan in place when you have something like this leaked. How did you guys become aware of the leak, and when did you flip that switch on to, I guess in a sense, press the red button and go with the contingency plan? Yeah,
definitely. So I was actually meeting with our president, Chris McGowan, and then got a knock on the door, and it was Ryan Flaherty, our VP brand strategy, who said, yeah, it has leaked, so what do we want to do? And we've had a couple of close calls actually earlier this year with some things, but we didn't think fans would, we knew fans would notice once they saw it, but fans didn't really notice the first couple times, and it was only up for a very, very brief time, but this time it had started to spread the internet, so we had to jump on it.
Michael and I were talking about this last segment. We're hoping that you could clarify this. The Pinwheel logo, I've read somewhere, and I'm hoping this is fact. Is it supposed to signify 2 teams of 5 players and sort of the action that takes place on the court, or can you shed some light on sort of the history of the Pinwheel?
Yeah, definitely, and that was not something I knew before I got here, but yeah, when it was designed 47 years ago, it was with the concept of 2 players playing 5-on-5 in perfect harmony. So. And we're also very Portland of us to give half our logo to the other team. Which yeah.
And so you mentioned it being very Portland of us, and we know the fans are such a big part of Portland. So how much fan input went into this design?
Yeah, a lot actually, and we've been, we had been. For a lot of different design ideas we wanted to implement into the logo. For instance, the parallelogram logo, which you guys might notice, which is the Portland and then the Trailblazers below the Pinwheel, was never a logo that we really liked, but it was the logo that the league sort of mandated. We had a primary mark that had both our city name and team name. So we wanted to get away from that, and we also, when we talked about that, we started talking to our fans, and we said, what would you want the Pinwheel to look like? We talked about taking it and tilting it back to the way it was in the 70s. Fans didn't really want to go that route, so they talked about the 90s logo, and they had a lot of love for the way the 90s logo looked. So we went back to a design that was more like the 90s logo, and we had all these logos up on the wall, and we were kind of just trying to pick through what we liked. And then Mario Milosevic, who's one of our designers here in-house, came up with the one that's the new one that you see now, and we all looked at it and thought it was great. And that was something that we came upon about 2 years ago. And then this summer last year when we started engaging with Nike about what our new uniforms could look like, we said, hey, if you want to have a crack at this logo and see if there's something that we can come up with, they were like, no, we love this version. You guys have done a good job here. And so we just went to working on the uniforms, but we like it.
So listening to you, Dewayne, it sounds like this has been at least a 2-year process. And so to have been able to keep it under wraps for most of the time prior to June 5th was, I guess we could deem a success.
Yeah, we can. And well, again, and I think most fans probably won't even know that there's a difference. You really have to look to maybe do a double take to see that it's different. Although, as I say that, some fans really know every little nook and cranny of the Blazers logo, so they noticed the change. And yeah, the fact that we were able to keep it under wraps this long, I think was a good thing.
If we could rewind the tape back, though, because it's not every day that a team changes their logo. I mean, it's a big thing and certainly an exciting thing for Trailblazer fans. What was the impetus in the beginning of the process?
The impetus was really getting away from, we knew we wanted to update the uniforms. We knew we wanted to update that logo that I was talking about. And so it really was, well, this could be a time to just sort of change. If there's anything we don't like about the Pinwheel, now's the time to do that because we're changing everything else. And ultimately, as you guys know, at the final product, not much has changed. It's slight modifications, slight differences. The real changes will come with the uniforms, which will be unveiled in July. you know, again, those home and roads won't change all that much. They're going to be different. There's a different typeface. We're getting away from the italicized font on the front of the jersey. Probably less silver than you've seen in the last couple of years, but very subtle things.
But for those of us fans that want to have the latest gear, when is this merchandise with the new Pinwheel and logo on it going to be available?
Yep. So there are new shirts in the team store right now on campus. We're getting a little bit behind in terms of you know, behind the eight ball, I should say, with unveiling the logo today. We don't have everything on our online store yet. So the best place right now to get it is in the team shop, and then pretty soon we'll have things ready to go online, and then in August we'll be on sale with new uniforms.
And I'm curious, Nike now is going to be taking over the uniforms for the NBA coming up this season. And the fact that when we saw with the NFL, they had an impact on some teams. You saw a drastic change with teams like Seattle, for example, but then other teams there wasn't really much of a change. What type of input and say, you alluded to it a little bit earlier, that they didn't really want to change the logo too much, but what was the conversation with them like?
Yeah, the conversation was good. They loved the direction that we had come up with on the logo, and when we sat down to talk about uniforms, we got to a really, really good place. What we decided was there's a lot of fans who love our traditional looks, don't want things to change a ton. And luckily, with the home and the road, as we'll unveil next month or 2 months from now, you'll see the home and road won't be much different, but our alt uniform, which is the uniform we wear, and then the Rip City uniform, we're probably going to do some things that are maybe a little outside of the traditional, a little more bold to get fans a little bit more excited. And if those looks catch on or people like things about those looks, those might be things we invite and put into the home and the road uniform at some point. But it allows us to have it both sides, which is great.
A lot of people will see a logo change and think, oh, this just applies to the uniforms and some of the apparel we do, but when you walk around this building, there are a lot of pinwheels here. And so when you look at how many things are going to be changed, what are some of the things that you can shed a light on to the fans that maybe they don't realize, listen, we're going to have to update this, and that?
Yes, we have a gentleman, Todd Adams, in our office actually, who's walked around this entire campus and the practice facility and looked at every pinwheel and everything that we'll have to change at some point. And again, I think with it being subtle, we probably won't need to change everything overnight, but as we go forward and as we start to be more thoughtful about what we're designing and building for future seasons, it'll have that new pinwheel.
And I'm curious, how does it work with the NBA when you go to submit a logo change? Because we obviously have seen lots of teams change logos. We saw a bunch in the 90s change logos, but what's that process like as far as officially changing it as being one of the 30 ball clubs?
Yeah, they have a great staff over there that we engage with, and every year every team in the league gets an email that says, if you want to change your logo, now's the email to send it out. And as I said, the last couple of years we've gone through the process and said, this is going to be the year we change it. And ultimately last year was when we decided we were going to unveil it, but then the Adidas deal ended and Nike came on, and we thought, well, we can wait one more year. We'll unveil everything together with the new Nike uniforms and the new logo, and that ended up being the process. And the league is involved from the start. I mean, they help us approve all of the looks. They help us approve what the court design might look like. They TV test all the uniforms. So they're a big, huge part of the process, and then they clear the IP from a legal and trademark standpoint. So the league's very helpful in this process.
I got a question. I don't know. I'm assuming this is in your wheelhouse. Since we're in the studio, and we're on television,
usually here,
and we look at a lot of visual things. I mean, as we roll in and out of commercials, and we look at the lower third, and we see the pinwheel. Who's responsible for that digital change?
The digital change, yeah. So that ultimately I think comes with Ryan Flaherty, and then he has another talented person, Billy Olson, who's our creative director, and he does all of the work of sort of building out our brand and our look and feel. And one thing I really appreciate about Billy is a couple of years ago when I started, we had a lot of different looks. If you came to a game, you saw a lot of different things, and if you saw it on the website, you saw something different, and if you saw it in our store, you saw something different. And Billy's done a really good job of creating a consistent, cohesive look, which I think is really important to. It's always a good place to be able to see something that's Blazers related, even if it doesn't have a logo on it, right? That means your brand is really strong, and obviously Nike's one of the best at it. So Billy on our staff's done a great job.
You were talking earlier about the process that the NBA at a league level is involved with when you change the logos. Do they have to approve any changes, and do the other teams get a notification that you are going to change the logo prior to when you are going to unveil it?
Yeah, the other teams don't. I think when we find out, when we get the retail books the next year and we see a blank spot where a team logo is supposed to be, because that means they're changing their logo, so that's how we find out. From the league standpoint, they're just heavily involved from the beginning. We don't have to get we have to get permission, obviously, with the league to be able to go down that road, and they don't want you changing it every year, obviously. So there's some things in place to make sure teams aren't changing logos all the time. So, but yeah, it's a great process.
And it's interesting too, when you talk about the uniforms, you said those will be unveiled in July. When you guys go through that process, is there any input at all from the players or anybody else, or is it just the fans that you guys are getting some input? Who all, I guess, has a voice in this conversation?
Yeah, with the uniforms, it's everywhere, from everyone from ownership, obviously Mr. Allen and Chris McGowan and the staff there, to the players, to our fans are obviously really important in that process. It's funny, I got a text this weekend from Eric Hallman, who you guys know is the equipment guy, and he said, "You see me a note with the uniforms. I want to be able to show Damien." Damien was asking about him, so we sent him to Damien, and he liked him. So we got the thumbs up from Damien. So I feel good about that. I feel like we're in a good spot.
All right, so remind us again, when can we see the new uniforms?
They will be unveiled sometime in July and available in August.
All right, Dewayne Hankins, Chief Marketing Officer for the Portland Trail Blazers. Thank you so much for joining us, and you can check out that new logo at trailblazerslogo.com.